Hello friends, happy Free Book Friday. This week I am going to read Sylvester and the Magic Pebble by William Steig. And this book I've read in some of the classes, but I actually remember my mom reading me this story. So it's an old story, but it's really good. And we have some friends with us from other stories. So we have Chester the raccoon, we have the mouse that we talked about last week. We have Leonard and Corduroy watching and listening, and guess what? I found a donkey, and so we'll pretend he's Sylvester for the story, okay? I'm gonna put him over here. Okay, Sylvester and the Magic Pebble. Sylvester Duncan lived with his mother and father at Acorn Road in Oatsdale. One of his favorite hobbies was collecting pebbles of unusual shape and color. On a rainy Saturday during vacation, he found quite an extraordinary one. It was flaming red and shiny and perfectly round like a marble. As he was studying this remarkable pebble, he began to shiver, probably from excitement, and the rain felt cold on his back. "I wish it would stop raining," he said. To his great surprise, the rain stopped. It didn't stop gradually as rain usually does. It ceased. The drops vanished on the way down, the clouds disappeared, everything was dry, the sun was shining, as if the rain had never existed. I also found a red pebble, but we'll get to that later. In all of his young life, Sylvester had never had a wish gratified so quickly. It struck him that there must be magic at work, and he guessed that the magic must be in the remarkable looking red pebble. To make a test, he put the pebble on the ground and said, "I wish it would rain again." Nothing happened. But when he said the same thing holding the pebble in his hoof, the sky turned black, there was lightning and a clap of thunder, and the rain came down. Whoa, what a lucky day, he thought. From now on, I can have anything I want. My father, my mother can have anything they want. My relatives, my friends, anybody, they can have whatever they want. He wished the sunshine back in the sky, and he wished a wart on his left hoof to disappear, and it did. And he started home eager to amaze his father and his mother about his new magic pebble. He could hardly wait to see their faces. Maybe they wouldn't even believe him at first. As he was crossing Strawberry Hill, thinking of so many things he could wish for, he was startled to see a mean, hungry lion looking right at him from behind some tall grass. He was frightened. If he hadn't been so frightened, he could have made the lion disappear, or he could have wished himself safe at home with his father and his mother. He could have wished the lion would turn into a butterfly, or a daisy, or a gnat. He could have wished many things, but he panicked and couldn't think carefully. "I wish I were a rock," he said, and he became a rock. The lion came bounding over, sniffing the rock 100 times, walked around and around, went away confused, perplexed, puzzled, and bewildered. "I saw that little donkey as clear as day," he thought. "Maybe I'm going crazy," he muttered. you have to think about, what would you have wished for if you saw a mean, ugly lion trying to chew you up? And there was Sylvester, a rock on Strawberry Hill, with the magic pebble lying right beside him on the ground, and he was unable to pick it up. Ugh, how I wish I were myself again, he thought. But nothing happened. He had to be touching the pebble to make the magic work, but there was nothing he could do about it. His thoughts began to race like mad. He was scared and worried and helpless, and he felt hopeless. He imagined all the possibilities, and eventually he realized his only chance of becoming himself again was for someone to find the red pebble and to wish that the rock next to it would be a donkey. Someone would surely find that red pebble. It was so bright and shiny. But what on earth would make them wish for a rock where there's a donkey? The chance was 1 in a billion at best. Sylvester fell asleep. What else could he do? Night came with many stars. Meanwhile, back at home, Mr. and Mrs. Duncan paced frantically on the floor. Sylvester had never come home so late for dinner. Where could he be? They stayed up all night wondering what had happened, expecting that Sylvester would surely turn up by the morning, but he didn't. Mrs. Duncan cried a lot, and Mr. Duncan did his best to soothe her. Both longed to have their dear son with them. "I will never scold Sylvester again as long as I live," said Mrs. Duncan, "no matter what he does." And at dawn, they went around inquiring to the neighbors. They're looking for him, right? But where is he? He's the rock on Strawberry Hill. They talked to all the children, the puppies, the kittens, the colts, the piglets. No one had seen Sylvester since the day before yesterday. They went to the police, and the police could not find their child. All the dogs in Oatsdale went searching for him. They sniffed behind every rock and tree and blade of grass, into every nook and gully of the neighborhood and beyond, but found not a scent of him. They sniffed the rock on Strawberry Hill, but it smelled like a rock. It didn't smell like Sylvester. Oh, man. After a month of searching the same places over and over again, and inquiring of all the same animals over and over again, Mr. and Mrs. Duncan no longer knew what to do. They concluded that something dreadful must have happened, and that they would probably never see their son again, though all the time he was less than a mile away. They tried their best to be happy, to go about their usual ways, but their usual ways included Sylvester, and they were always reminded of him. They were miserable. Life had no meaning. Night followed day, and day followed night, over and over. Sylvester on the hill woke up less and less often. When he was awake, he was only hopeless and unhappy. He felt he would be a rock forever, and he tried to get used to it. He went into an endless sleep, and the days grew colder. Fall came with the leaves changing color. Then the leaves fell, and the grass bent to the ground. Then it was winter, and the winds blew this way and that. It snowed. Mostly all the animals stayed indoors, living on their food they had stored up. One day, a wolf sat on the rock that was Sylvester and howled because he was hungry. Then the snow melted, and the earth warmed up in the spring, and things budded. Leaves were on the trees again, and flowers showed their young faces. Pretty. One day in May, Mr. Duncan insisted that his wife go with him for a picnic. "Let's cheer up," he said. "Let us try to live again and be happy, even though Sylvester, our angel, is no longer with us." And they went to Strawberry Hill. Mrs. Duncan sat down on the rock, the warmth of his own mother sitting on him while Sylvester woke up from his deep winter sleep was exciting. How he wanted to shout, "Mother, Father, it's me, Sylvester, I'm right here." But he couldn't talk. He had no voice. He was stone. So see, his mom is sitting there. Mr. Duncan walked aimlessly about while Mrs. Duncan set out the picnic food on the rock. Alfalfa sandwiches, pickled oats, sassafras salad. Suddenly, Mr. Duncan saw the red Pebble. "What a fantastic pebble," he shouted. "Sylvester would have loved it for his collection." He put the pebble on the rock. They sat down to eat. Sylvester was now wide awake as a donkey could be that was a rock. Mrs. Duncan felt some mysterious excitement. "You know, Father," she said suddenly, "I have the strangest feeling that our dear Sylvester is still alive and not far away." I am, Sylvester wanted to shout, but he couldn't. If only he had realized that the pebble resting on his back was the magic pebble. "Oh, how I wish he were here with us on this lovely May day," said Mrs. Duncan. Mr. Duncan looked sadly at the ground. "Don't you wish it too, Father?" she said. He looked at her as if to say, "How can you say such a question?" Mr. and Mrs. Duncan looked at each other with great sorrow. "I wish I were myself again. I wish I were my real self again," thought Sylvester. And in less than an instant, he was. Wait a minute. Look, he's not a rock anymore. And he's got all the sandwiches on him because now he's a donkey again. You can imagine the scene that unfolded. The embraces, the kisses, the questions, the answers, the loving looks, and the fond exclamations. "Woo woo, they're happy. Sylvester's back." When they had eventually calmed down a bit and had gotten home, Mr. Duncan put the magic pebble in an iron safe. Someday they might want to use it, but really for now, what more could they wish for? They all had all that they wanted. The end. Oh, so all they really wanted was to be together, right? So the magic pebble was great, but you have to be careful what you wish for, right? Because he wished he'd be a rock and then he couldn't see his parents anymore. Anyway, love this story. I hope you loved it too. So, I want to say Happy Free Book Friday to Room A. And Happy Free Book Friday to Room B. And Happy Free Book Friday to C. And Happy Free Book Friday to Room K. I hope you're having a good week. And next week we're going to go lining up all the stories we've read so far since we've been apart, okay? So I hope you enjoyed Sylvester. Here he is, my friend the donkey. And I hope you have a good week. And I love you very much. And I hope to see you soon. Bye.